Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 27th November 2016, Sunday. So on Sunday we have special coverage by Hindu on science and technology. So the number of news items generally does increase. For today we have 14 news items which we have picked up from the paper. The first one, 2016 turns annus horribilis for security forces in Jammu and Kashmir. So the number of casualties of security forces in 2016 has increased drastically. It has been the highest number of casualties after 2007. So from 2007 to 2014, we saw militancy had steadily declined in Jammu and Kashmir, but suppose that the number of infiltrations have also increased, the number of militants killed has also increased. So this is the data which is put forth right now. So as we see the tensions escalate, the number of casualties and infiltrations are also escalating. Then the next news item is government accepts pay panel clause on increment cut. The 7th Pay Commission submitted its report to the centre in 2016. Most of its recommendations were accepted as well. Some of them were rejected. Presently, the news is that one recommendation which was rejected earlier has been accepted now. So the centre has reversed its earlier decision, changed its earlier decision, and this is regarding employees whose performance is rated not up to the mark in quotes. So all such employees who have been in service in their first 20 years, their performance is not up to the mark in quotes, then their annual increments can be withheld by the government. So this provision has now been accepted by the centre. So the benefits which the 7th Pay Commission gave to the government employees was it overall brought in a 23.5% hike in pay allowances and pensions for the government employees. So presently the salary of a starting employee, new recruit at lowest level is 18,000 per month. So earlier it was 7,000. So this is a hike which comes up here. Even a freshly recruited class 1 officer has a monthly salary of 56,100 at recruitment. So this ratio between the lowest and the highest is called compression ratio. So this is 1:3.12. Means the class 1 officer, direct recruit, is having 3 times higher pay than the lowest level fresh recruit. So this is called compression ratio. Here you can see how the salaries have increased. Even for the cabinet secretary, from 90,000 after the 7th Pay Commission's recommendation, it has gone to 2,50,000 per month. So these are the salaries shown, and this is the PAP per GDP ratio. PAP by GDP. So PAP stands for pay, allowances and pensions. So this is over the years how this has changed. So this is the expected, means how much amount would be required as a part of GDP for implementing 7th Pay Commission's recommendations. So this is shown here. So this has been welcomed as such broadly. The other recommendations, as you can see here, are put forth too. So one rank, one pension, which has been put forth for armed forces. The 7th Pay Commission has recommended for other civilian government employees as well. So your pensions would also increase as the pay commissions provide revisions rather than the last pay pension which you receive as per your salary which you last drew. So this is the recommendation. Also another recommendation is of abolishing 52 allowances. So rationalization of allowances was also brought in. Another 36 allowances have been subsumed into existing ones or are under newly proposed allowances. So these were some of the recommendations. Then the next news is GST transmission clause spooks industry. So GST, goods and services tax, this has to be implemented by the government by passing all the related laws in the present session of the parliament. Also we have discussed this earlier in October. It has been covered in detail. So you should presently know about what is the GST Council. If you don't, then please refer to October news. GST Council will be meeting again on December 3 and 4. And they will make final decisions on the rates and other aspects which have not been finalized. So with this GST Council's decision, finally the 3 bills which are there, these final revised drafts, Model GST Law, Integrated GST Act and GST Compensation to the States for Loss of Revenue Act. All these 3 have to be passed by the Parliament in its present session. Only if this is done, then the government can meet the deadline which it has set for itself of implementing GST by 1st April 2017. So we have to wait and watch what happens on this matter too. But presently the news is that the center has put in an enabling provision in the GST model GST law, and this is to empowering itself. So it says that it will constitute an authority, or it may have an existing authority, this power and responsibility to impose penalties on businesses that fail to pass on the benefits of this new GST regime to the consumers by lowering prices. So this will be the power with this authority. So input tax credits are given to the businesses. So we'll discuss what are these input tax credits to. So if these credits are given, then reduction in tax rates which happen because of this have to result in commensurate reduction in the prices for consumers too. So this should be taken care of. For this purpose, this authority will be set up. So it will be having the power to impose penalties. So what is this input tax credit? You should know for this. This is the GST. So GST is goods and services tax, which is imposed at every stage on all end commodities. So some commodities are used as inputs for generating an output. So example given like raw material, electricity, or some services used. So these inputs are also taxed. Then the business processing takes place and the output is generated. So output is also taxed. So this input tax which has already been paid is credited. So these are called input tax credits because this amount has already been taxed. So this is claimed by the businesses then. So this input tax credit which will come to the businesses have result in lower taxation rates. So these lower taxation rates then should go as benefits to the consumers as lower prices too. So this is the reason for implementing this clause. So of course the industry is up in arms. They don't want this form of authority which will look into all such matters, because this will result in, they say, bringing in more of socialistic licensing norms and authorities which will look into functioning of businesses. So they are of course resisting this. So let's see how this goes forward. And another is also other commodities like other taxes like excise and countervailing duties. Here also credits would be provided later. So these credits also, input credits, would be allowed only if benefits are passed on to the consumers. So excise duty which is taken from by the government on commodities which are transferred from one state to another. Countervailing duties are duties which are imposed on commodities. We have discussed this earlier too. Countervailing duty is a duty which is imposed on those imports which it is expected are dumped into the country. So to ensure that the imported commodities prices are not lower than the commodity prices which are available in the country. So those such commodities are taxed and charged a duty which is called countervailing duty. So these countervailing duties are also paid back. So when such paybacks take place, input credits take place, then they have to benefit the recipients also, the consumers who finally buy these commodities. So we'll have to wait and watch how this is implemented. Then other provisions which are there under the GST bill about which the industry is demanding is that free goods which are exempted from GST, they should be free from coming under the GST regime unless they are supplied to the related parties. So this is one demand which they are putting up and the bill has accepted it. Then another one is that special economic zones should be zero rated. So those commodities, special economic zones are regions which are considered only for export purposes. So they should be not charged under GST. So these two provisions have been put forth. Another is about treating intangibles as services. So this is also been removed from the GST model, that intangibles would not be coming under services as such. So they would not be charged under GST. Then the next news item is RBI takes measures to absorb excess liquidity. So since the demonetization program, we are seeing that banks are gaining a lot of money, old currencies with them, and this huge amount of money which is going with the banks has to be maintained, because if they increase their businesses through this, means they start giving more loans under this, then this will result in excess liquidity coming in the market. So RBI is cautioning and has put in measures to ensure that this excess liquidity does not come forth, and for that reason it has asked banks, all banks have to maintain 100% cash reserve ratio. I'll say what is cash reserve ratio. 100% cash reserve ratio for the deposits they have received between September 16 and November 11. So this has been put forth. So the overall cash reserve ratio requirement for banks is 4%. What is this cash reserve ratio? CRR is the proportion of deposits that the banks have with them which they have to keep as cash with the RBI. So this money, 4% of the entire cash deposits which the banks have, has to go to RBI. So for this much time frame, the RBI is asking that the entire 100% should go to RBI. So this is a provision which they have brought in to ensure, and they have assured the banks that this is a temporary provision to absorb excess liquidity. Post this will be changed, they say, by December 9 or maybe even earlier. So the RBI will bring in further orders on this matter. So this is about cash reserve ratio, a minimum fraction of total deposits of customers which say commercial banks have to hold as reserves either in cash or as deposits with the central bank. So they all go to RBI. So the cash reserve ratio can lie between 3% to 15%. Presently it is 4%. Then the next news item is Chennai team turns leather waste into carbon for electrodes. So researchers from Vellore Institute of Technology in Chennai have converted solid waste, leather solid waste containing chromium 3 into porous carbon matrix for use as electrodes in supercapacitors. So this solid waste leather is mainly made of collagen fibers. So this can be converted into carbon, and they also contain chromium. Chromium is used for leather tanning. So it imparts toughness to leather. So chromium 3 as such is not toxic, but then on spontaneous oxidation it converts into chromium 6, which is toxic. So of course this disposal has to take place in a better eco-friendly way. So chromium 3 containing leather solid waste, when used to convert into something useful, results in safe disposal also, and it can be used in electronic as an electronic item, which is much more beneficial. So what they have done is they have converted this solid waste into porous carbon matrix. So this porous carbon matrix contains pores. There are three types of pores which are contained in this. These are micropores, mesopores and macropores. So all three are nanopores, less than 2 nanometer, 2 to 50 nanometer and over 50 nanometer respectively. So this is called, this carbon matrix is called hierarchical porous carbons. So these hierarchical porous carbons are already known and are a promising material to develop electrodes that can be used as supercapacitors. So they have this function with which they can store charge. So because of this charge storing capacity, they can be used as supercapacitors. You can look at this too. This is about the hierarchical porous carbon. These are the three pores here which you can see. This is the macropore, mesopore, a smaller size, and these pores within this are called micropores. So this can be used for charge storage and as supercapacitors. So presently hierarchical porous carbons already are known and have been developed. What these researchers have done, have converted solid waste of leather into this. Then the next news item is a clue into making biodegradable plastic. So what is biodegradable plastic? So there are polymers which are generated by bacteria. So these polymers can be extracted from bacteria and can be used as plastic. So they have different types of plastic characteristics, from thermoplasticity to elastoplasticity. These are called polyhydroxyl alkanoid acids, PHAs. So these are bacteria generated polymers, so they are biodegradable. And these bacteria generate this polymer through an enzyme. So decoding the structure of this enzyme is the news presently, that scientists from MIT University in USA have decoded the structure of an enzyme that is used by the bacteria to make these polymer chains, which are biodegradable plastic. So this is used for storing carbon also, which when they go nutrient deficient. So why do they produce these polymers? Because they are carbon storage for them. So when there is nutrient deficiency, these polymer chains act as carbon storages. So this is shown here. So this is having huge potential, but presently it is very costly affair to extract this biodegradable biodegradable plastic from bacteria. So 85% of the weight of the bacteria will be this polymer. So polymer's weight is 85% of the weight of the bacteria, and bacteria is also very minuscule. So you can understand that extracting sufficient biodegradable bacteria will be very costly. Then the next news item is hungry bacteria can extract energy from sewage. So sewage contains organic matter, but the levels of organic matter are not sufficient to be directly recovered. So how can this organic matter be recovered from sewage? So scientists have now found a way in which bacteria are starved. So this is called a fasting regimen, which they have on these bacteria and starve them, and then they become gluttonous and gobble up a lot of organic matter from the sewage. So this is much of it then remains undigested, and this undigested material can then be harvested and used to produce energy and high quality products. So this technique has been developed. So this hungry bacteria can extract energy from sewage and helps in better sewage disposal also. So this is how this wastewater treatment can also take place and energy can also be produced. So this is the news. Then the next news item is the stealth superbug decoded. So a team of scientists from Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru have decoded the genome sequencing of Candida auris. This is a deadly fungus which has resulted in disease outbreak in 5 continents in 2016. So this Candida auris genome has been sequenced by these Indian scientists from IISc Bengaluru. So this outbreak has been seen in not just USA but also in India, Pakistan, South Korea, Kuwait, South Africa, and even in South America, in Colombia and Venezuela, and in Europe and UK. So this superbug fungus which has emerged because of again an inefficient use of antibiotics. So this has resulted in it becoming resistant to various drugs which are used against this. The fungal infection which is caused is candidiasis. So there are various candida species which cause this fungal infection. It is generally seen in patients which have a very low immune system, which is seen in AIDS patients or in case of transplants when immune systems go low, meningitis and catheters which are used by patients for urine passage. So in such cases it is seen that candidiasis erupts, but then the form of candidiasis because of this Candida auris is very deadly because it is a superbug. So there have been other fungal these species also like Candida hemolini. So this hemolini also results in candidiasis. So there is also cases of misidentification of the species which has caused candidiasis, which results in even the drugs not being given correctly. So such cases have also been found by these researchers in India. So clear genome sequence is essential to have the correct diagnosis and treatment. So presently their genome sequencing is used globally. So this is in use. Then the next news item is H5N8 expands its reach. So H5N8 is avian bird flu virus, and this has been found, it is highly contagious, found in India, in Karnataka as well as in Delhi Zoo. There were cases of ducks, chicken being diagnosed with this H5N8 virus, and they had all been culled or they died. So it has been shot within its place of origin. But the thing is that this virus can become contagious too and affect humans. Presently there are no cases of it being affecting humans, but crossing over of a virus can take place anytime. So we have to have our guards up. So even the government had issued health advisories that people should not consume uncooked chicken or eggs. So this is H5N8 virus. It's a subtype of H5N1 virus. So H5N1 is the bird flu virus which we know, which affects humans too. And this all are type A influenza. So influenza, flu, which we generally know as in short FLU. So influenza virus are of 3 types, types A, B and C. So type A virus is the one which affects both humans and animals, and this we are seeing crossing over taking place from animals to humans like bird flu, swine flu. Type B and type C affect only humans and they are mild in nature. These can go from moderate to severe, even causing loss of life. So this is in news. H5N8 bird flu strain has been found in India as well as in Europe and West Asia in recent weeks. So it is seen that poultry are being affected by this virus. Also these names which you hear of different H and N. So these H and N viruses names come from all are type A viruses, anti-influenza viruses. These are hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. So these are the 2 constituents. So hemagglutinin are of 15 different types and neuraminidase are of 9 types. So these various combinations are known. So this is RBC agglutinin which is there. Then the bird flu virus, as you can see here, the 2 most prominent ones, H5N1 and H7N9. These are the 2 prominent bird flu viruses. So you can see mutated bird flu strains can travel on mucal droplets in cough and sneeze, so they can transmit to human. Then person to person transmission can be dangerous and can cause a pandemic, an epidemic which is pan-continents. Then this is about swine flu virus. H1N1 is swine flu virus. So this is also passed through swine, which is the pig. Then the next news item is flash floods in Kerala come from a distance. Kallakadal. This is a name for flash floods which occurred in Kerala coast in 2005. So this had caught the scientific community off guard because it is seen that these floods came without any warning, because generally it is seen that floods occur with cyclones or storm surges, but no such locally visible weather feature was there and floods occurred along the coast. So this has been now studied and it is seen that these flash floods were caused because of some activity nearly 6,000 kilometers away from the southern Indian Ocean. So that effect was seen in Kerala, and in Kerala these flash floods have been called Kallakadal, and this term has been accepted by UNESCO also in 2012 as a scientific term. So for this term specifically, this is important, that what is Kallakadal. So the entire description is given here about how the swell waves coming from southern ocean had resulted in flash floods in southwest coast of India. So this study has been done by INCOIS, Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, headquartered in Hyderabad. Then the next news item is, why does the ink in an ATM slip fade away after some days? So this is regarding thermal printing. So ATM receipts are printed by a method called thermal printing. So the paper which is used is having a coating of organic dyes or wax, and this, when the print heads create impressions on them, it results in thermochromism. So that is the process of change in color with heating. So these organic dyes, waxes change their color on this heating effect, and thus the printing comes in. So because of continued sunlight exposure or heavy high heat, this melting point of these coatings is reached, and this causes irreversible damage to their chemical composition, and then coating eventually is faded or disappears. So this is because of this thermal printing. So you should know what is thermal printing as well. Then the next news item is HIV bill falls short. So this we have already discussed. This we have discussed just recently 2 days back about prevention as far as possible, which has been put forth, because of which the government in this HIV bill has said that will not look into treatment but only prevention. So antiretroviral therapy which is used and opportunistic infection management which is there in place. So prevention would be taken care of under this and not treatment. So that too, prevention as far as possible. So in India, antiretroviral drugs are provided free of cost to all people living with HIVs since 2004. First line, second line, because there are again resistance developed. So first line, second line drugs are available presently under the government program free of cost. And this free of cost is possible because of the huge amount of funding which comes from this global fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria. And this fund is bound to be discontinued from 2017. So that is a danger. So then it will become difficult for people with HIV to get antiretroviral therapy when the bill also does not assure treatment. So this will become very difficult, and then AIDS may propagate further, and rather than seeing ending of AIDS in India, we will see a resurgence. So this is being put forth by the activists here. So Indian generic companies are supplying antiretroviral therapies, drugs to all countries, developing countries, while in India itself we will have a scarcity because of government not giving sufficient protection and availability of these drugs. So this is a huge irony. So this has to be taken care of. Then next point which is put forth about the HIV AIDS bill is the ombudsman which would be set up. So originally the ombudsman was to be set up at the district level, but this proposed bill says the ombudsman will be at state level and it will be an ordinary government servant. So no full-time trained judicial related matter person would be put forth. So this will result in even the ombudsman not functioning effectively. So ombudsman, we have already done what it is in a Lokpal also. So it will inquire into violations regarding healthcare services under the bill. But the government presently has said even the scope of ombudsman jurisdiction will increase, talking of all types of discrimination against HIV patients and AIDS patients. So this will result in increase in workload also, plus not having sufficient training and capacity in the official appointed. So this is being highlighted. Then the next is about needle safety program, which also we have already discussed earlier, that earlier the bill had provided protection to volunteers and patients from illegality when they provide sterile needles to people who take unlawful drugs. So now this will result in them being prosecuted too. So this provision has been dropped. Then another is on employment. So present bill talks of only security of employment for only people in government sector, in public sector. So this is again means if you are terminated from a private sector, then you can go to the civil court only. The bill does not provide you any safeguard. So this is also highlighted. Then the next news item is Fidel Castro passes away at 90. So Fidel Castro was the leader of Cuba. He remained the president of Cuba for decades. Presently, he has died at the age of 90 years. He handed over the presidency to his younger brother, Raul Castro. So Fidel Castro became famous because of the revolution which he undertook in Latin American country, Cuba, South American country. And in this Cuba, which was in the hands of a dictator, his dictatorship was brought down, Fulgencio Batista. So his dictatorship was ended and Fidel Castro established a socialist form of government here. US had severe ties with Cuba. There were many attempts to assassinate Fidel Castro too, but none succeeded. Eventually now due to an illness, he's finally died. So America had banned all exports to Cuba except food and medicines. So this had been their severing of all diplomatic ties since 1961. So there was Bay of Pigs invasion too, because Fidel Castro brought in drastic economic reforms too. So this resulted in many Cubans going into exile. So they had initiated an invasion on Cuba to take it over from Fidel Castro. So this was Bay of Pigs invasion of 1961 and CIA of USA was supporting this invasion that was there. But then this failed. After that, there was nuclear missile crisis of 1962, just a year later. So this was when Moscow, because of threats to Cuba, Cuba asked Moscow, Soviet Union for help. And in 1962, then Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, he established nuclear missiles in Cuba. So he brought in nuclear missiles in South America, very close to USA. So this resulted in huge escalation of tensions when finally he had to remove the missiles, otherwise there were chances of even a nuclear attack possible. So this was the nuclear missile crisis of 1962. And then eventually after the end of Cold War, the relations of Cuba with other countries normalized. And also in 2014, the President Raul Castro and US President Barack Obama announced normalization of ties also. So this is the status of Cuba right now. Cuba is a member of NAM, Non-Aligned Movement, so it has good relations with India. This is Fidel Castro. So the relations have been normal. Jawaharlal Nehru was among the first to recognize Cuban government under Fidel Castro when he established it. Then the last news item is sweeping British spy bill becomes law. So the British Parliament has passed a bill called the Investigatory Powers Bill. So this bill gives powers to authorities of the government, from police to food regulators, fire officials, tax inspectors, to look into the internet browsing records of anyone in the country. So these are the sweeping powers being put forth. So it requires all telecom companies to record all users' web activity for a year. So this has been called as dark days, even by the founder of World Wide Web, who has invented World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, one of the inventors. So this is a bill, this has already been passed by the British Parliament. It is waiting for the assent of the royal assent. The Queen will give its assent and then it will become into a law. It has been debated for the last 12 months and now it has been put into effect. So that is it for today. Thank you so much.